Hello, welcome to New Vision TV. I am Ruth Inaseje. Now on 9th October 2017, Uganda will celebrate 55 years of independence. So as we commemorate this important day, New Vision TV has the pleasure to take you back in the moment by bringing you the untold stories and some silent highlights over the years. On Tuesday, 9th October 1962, Uganda gained independence from Great Britain as a parliamentary democratic monarchy, with traditional kingdoms of Ankole, Buganda, Bunyoro and Toro receiving federal status and a degree of autonomy. Buganda, under the leadership of Sir Edward Mutesa, was the most powerful kingdom. Milton Obote, the leader of the Socialist Uganda People's Congress, became the first prime minister of the newly independent nation. Uganda had taken over 60 years under the British colonial rule. What did this mean for Uganda?
I think the independence we are talking about is self-determination from a foreign rule, in our case now, which was British foreign rule, which was formally, officially established over Uganda in 1894. So technically, officially speaking, the British ruled Uganda for 68 years.
The attainment of independence marked a new era in the political history of Uganda.
Uganda became independent in 1962, but the governor then, Sir Walter Coates, remained here for 1 year. Like in many British colonies, the governor would remain after handing over independence. So the governor remained, and he was kind of the chief executive for 1 year. So for that 1 year, the African power was in the hands of Milton Obote, who was an executive prime minister. Then in 1963, there was a constitutional review, a 1962 constitutional review, to provide for the ceremonial head of state. And since independence was attained through the alliance between Kabaka Yeka party and the UPC alliance, therefore there was an agreement between the two parties that actually Kabaka Mutesa should be elected by parliament as the first president of Uganda, and Nadiope, the Chabazingo Busoga, as the vice president. So that was the arrangement, and then Obote would remain as the executive prime minister, like the case is in Britain, where you have the queen or the king and the executive prime minister. Milton Obote was not an ordinary prime minister like we have today, like we have Honorable Uganda. No. The Milton Obote was an executive prime minister. So he had more powers. Actually, he had powers. The Kabaka had less powers. So that was the arrangement. So the first president of Uganda was Edward Mutesa, and he assumed that office in 1963, not 1962, as some people assume.
Uganda takes its name from Buganda Kingdom, which forms a large part of the south of the country, including the capital, Kampala. In 1965, Prime Minister Milton Obote and Amin were implicated in a deal to smuggle ivory and gold into Uganda from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The deal, as later alleged by General Nicholas Olenga, an associate of the former Congolese leader Patrice Lumumba, was part of an arrangement to help troops opposed to the Congolese government trade ivory and gold for arms supplies secretly smuggled to them by Amin. In 1966, the Ugandan parliament demanded an investigation. Obote imposed a new constitution abolishing the ceremonial presidency held by Kabaka Mutesa II of Buganda and declared himself executive president. He promoted Amin to the rank of colonel and made him army commander.
There was a crisis in 1966 where Milton Obote, the then executive prime minister, assumed powers of the president and abolished the post of the prime minister. And in 1967, a new constitution was written. Actually, there was a draft and it was debated. That's not the pigeonhole constitution. People have also mistaken the 67 Constitution, Republican Constitution, to be the pigeonhole Constitution. No, the pigeonhole Constitution was a 1966 Constitution. Because Uganda has had 4 constitutions since independence, 62, 66, 67, and 95. So the pigeonhole Constitution was the 1966. That was a draft constitution that was drafted by the Attorney General's chambers, headed by the Attorney General Rukongwa Benaisa, taken to the pigeonholes of the members of parliament then, and under pressure, it was passed on the day it was introduced. People picked it in the pigeonhole and they were told to pass it even without reading it or debating it. That's why it is called the pigeonhole constitution. But it was an interim constitution after the Kabaka had been exiled. Then the Attorney General's chambers drafted another constitution that was debated by Parliament as a constituent assembly in 1967. And it was passed. And that is the Republican Constitution, 1967. And that is when kingdoms were abolished in Uganda and a republic established. That was since 1967. So the monarchies were abolished. The federal arrangement, which Uganda enjoyed, was also abolished. Uganda became a unitary state under one president. But something that people also don't note is that there were supposed to be national elections in 1967. They were postponed by Parliament till 1971, so for 5 years. So we didn't have elections just because of the promulgation of Parliament, which arbitrarily postponed the elections. So we have had a problem with our Parliament in Uganda, which has been a rubber stamp Parliament. Because how on earth could Parliament sit, amend the Constitution, actually abrogate the Constitution, write another Constitution, and then give themselves another term of office? It has happened. It happened in 67. It happened in 89. And we are likely to have those scenarios again where we experience parliamentary dictatorship.
On May 24, 1966, the deep political crisis exploded in Uganda when the Uganda army, under the command of Idi Amin, attacked the palace of the King of Buganda, Frederick Walugembe Mutesa II, affectionately known as King Freddy. The Kabaka was forced into exile to the United Kingdom, where he remained until his death in 1969. The army was intent on capturing and killing the Kabaka, but were not successful. The Kabaka and his royal guards put up a spirited fight that kept the Ugandan army at bay for a number of hours. After a day-long battle in which the army deployed tanks and heavy artillery, it became evident that the Kabaka and his defenders, with small arms, could not hold the palace against the attacking force. The Kabaka was able to elude capture and, with the help of several loyal supporters, was able to escape into exile. For the first time in Uganda's short history, the state had deliberately and systematically turned its guns on its own people. This attempt to destroy the Buganda kingdom and the culture of its people was truly momentous in the country's history. In other developments, Obote announced that the offices of President and Vice President would cease to exist, effectively dismissing the Kabaka. Obote also gave Amin more power, giving him the army commander position over the previous holder, Opolot. Obote abolished the constitution and effectively suspended the elections due in a few months. He further dismantled the authority of the Kabaka by abolishing the independent public service commissions for federal units. This removed the Kabaka's authority to appoint civil servants in Buganda. He also abolished the Buganda High Court, removing any judicial authority the Kabaka had. He brought Buganda financial management under central control and abolished all lands for Buganda chiefs. The 1962 constitution was abrogated by Prime Minister Milton Obote in 1966, who declared himself president under an interim constitution of 1966. Other major changes by this constitution were the abolishment of the kingdoms and the introduction of a more centralized system of government. The election of members of parliament remained by direct universal suffrage across the entire country, but the president was now elected indirectly by the parliament. Although the system of government had some democratic semblance, democratic principles were hardly observed. Obote ruled basically with the support of the army. Shortly after the Constitution of 1967, a state of emergency was declared and Uganda slowly shifted to a one-party rule under the Uganda People's Congress.
The stage was set into a state of dictatorship, which, as we shall see in our next episode, exploded into a military coup and anarchy. So keep the conversation on our social media platforms, on Facebook, The New Vision, and Twitter @NewVisionWire. I am Ruth Naseje.